Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Gypsy Live event. I am Rachel Altum, your online community manager for the Gypsy Nurse. And today we have our friends from AMN joining us again to talk about their infamous AMN Passport. You've heard them talk about it tons and tons of times. Today we're going to highlight it and talk about all the great things about AMN and what they can do for you. Welcome back, especially Saundra. You brought some new friends.
I did. Always bring some new friends. So we're excited to be back, Rachel.
Well, I'm going to let you take it away and share what you got.
Sounds good. Well, welcome everybody. I have the comments up, so I am ready for any questions that you have. Feel free to throw them in there. But my name is Saundra. I'm one of the divisional vice presidents over at AMN Healthcare. And if you've been on these before, you've probably seen my face. But I'm so excited to welcome my panel here, Meagan, Connor, and Kendrick. I'll have them introduce themselves a little bit in just a minute. But again, if you've been here before, you know that I cannot start these things without thanking all of you, our wonderful clinicians, for everything that you do. I know that probably each of us have been impacted by you in some way, and we just truly, truly appreciate everything that you do out there. So have to start by saying thank you. Let me jump over to Meagan. I'll introduce my panel. Meagan, you're at the top of my screen, so tell us a little bit about who you are.
Hi, thanks for having me today. My name is Meagan Gauthier. I am a senior account manager with AMN. I have actually been with AMN for just over 5 years now, so time flies when you're having fun. I actually started as a recruiter, so like Connor and Kendrick here, and then I did transition over to account management. So I'm just really happy to be here. And as Saundra said, thank you all for everything that you do. We really, really, really appreciate you, and we can't tell you enough.
Connor, you're at the next little bucket on my screen. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Appreciate it, Saundra. Yeah, I've been with AMN just over 6 years now. Had a few positions, but always in the recruitment side of things, and started off in Boca, now out in Colorado.
Welcome, Connor. We're excited to have you and traveling across the country. And Kendrick, last but not least, and poor Kendrick, I know has been sick. So Kendrick, take it away.
Yes. Hello, my name is Kendrick Azubuike. I've been with AMN for going on 6 years now, and I'm also a recruitment manager here. So thankful to be here, and looking forward to talking to some of you nurses as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Kendrick. So I know all of us are at some variety. I think Meagan, knock on wood, has been healthy. Connor, I think maybe has been healthy, might have gotten a cold, but poor Kendrick and I are either coming off of a cold, so it might sound a little congested, but we're here and we're just so excited to talk to all of you. So Rachel highlighted it a little bit at the beginning, but one of the things that we really want to talk to you about is how you stand out as a traveler in this market. And I think before we go into that, would love to just talk a little bit about what is the market in 2025 and what's maybe different than last year or 5 years ago, because it's changing a lot, right, Meagan? And our clients are looking to work with not only us, but other travel nurse companies in a different way. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing, Meagan, from that lens.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, before, you all were probably feeling it, you could maybe apply to 1 or 2 positions and get that position really quickly. Now things have shifted, things have changed. You might take about 5 to 7 positions to be able to lock in one. And it's a little bit different. You might feel that. You also might feel that before some requirements were waived, you didn't need to have, references, or you didn't need to have everything completely updated to get into that position. But hospitals are starting to normalize to get back to a standard baseline of submissions. And that's we're seeing those come back now. So you might be feeling that, but there is a reason behind it. The facilities really want to make sure that they are getting the right fit, not only for them, but also that you're going to have a great experience as well. So they're really looking at profiles a lot more in detail and want to make sure it's setting everyone up for success.
And I think that's a really important note that we'll talk a little bit more about, Meagan. But before we go into just that why behind it, Connor and Kendrick, I'd love to hear from you all how we're helping our clinicians to ensure that they have those things on their file or on their profile before we progress them forward. So Kendrick, why don't I start with you? Tell us a little bit about how we're utilizing Passport to support that.
Yeah. So, one thing that pops up, comes to front of mind is the push notifications that you should be receiving on those on your apps and your profile. So, utilizing that, getting your profile up to date, making sure, you add your certifications, you update your work history, add in your social security number and date of birth, as a lot of our clients request that at the time of submission. And just, completing those tasks. You get those task notifications. Thankfully, AMN does a great job of just making sure that they're streamlining that information and that you have, line of sight on what you need to update so that you can get submitted. And then, making sure you're keeping in touch with your recruiter as well to see if there's any additional requirements that you have to get on file as well.
Absolutely. And then Meagan will probably talk more about this too, but we have kind of this baseline of items that we call being profile ready. And Connor, I'd love to hear from you. But those are kind of the minimal requirements that we have that most of our facilities are going to require of you, kind of regardless of who you're submitted with. But Connor, tell us a little bit more about that profile ready piece.
Sure, Saundra. What we're seeing as far as what clients are requiring, just kind of off the bat, that most facilities are requiring our healthcare professionals to have, is just full work history, entirely up to date, facility or employer, not agency there, and then the specialty they worked, whether it was full-time, PRN, or travel, and also license and certifications on file, skills checklist, earliest available start date and time off, two supervisory references on file for that specialty that you're looking to travel for a full year of time in the last 3 years. And some are even asking for those references within the last year. Mm-hmm. And then, like to Kendrick's point, social and date of birth, all of this is being asked for on file for the submission.
Pretty much on the regular, right? For most of the facilities, they're going to require some element of that. And if they don't require it on the front end, right, Meagan, they're going to require it at time of credentialing before you actually start assignment. So might as well get them done. To go back to Kendrick's point, you don't have to memorize everything that Connor just told you, because it is available to you on the Passport app, and you can just open that guy up and make sure that you're completing those tasks in order. But Meagan, tell me a little bit more, kind of highlighted it, but the why behind maybe that shift that some of our more seasoned travel nurses are experiencing and where that's coming from.
Yeah. So, I mean, and Kendrick kind of mentioned it too, but, or maybe it was Connor, sorry, but a lot of the times they want to have these items on file ahead of time to speed. Get your profile in there, be one of the first ones in with all those items on file, to avoid a lot of the back and forth of going to your recruiter and then your recruiter coming to me and then, me going to the client. So kind of to cut back on some of that back and forth. But then also there is a risk of, waiting for, you to get those certifications or items during the credentialing process. There might be delays. It might not come through in time. And then at the end of the day, it might end up pushing out your start date or preventing you from starting at all. And it kind of pushes the facility into a tough spot where, they have a need. They need someone there as soon as possible. And not having those items on file might, prevent you from giving them that help that they need. So that's one of the reasons that they are looking to have those up front.
Yeah. So it's almost like a multi-layered answer as to why, right? Of just making sure that you have what you need in order to be successful on the assignment. Nobody wants to step into a facility where they feel like, oh my gosh, I have no idea how to really support the patient population here because of whatever reason, right? So there's that element of just patient safety, making sure that you feel comfortable and confident. But there's also this other piece of being the right fit, because the hospitals need travelers and they are aware that they need travelers, and they want them to feel like they are really embedded within the culture that they're creating. I think one of the things that we've seen come up quite a bit within just your chats and things that you're concerned about when it comes to that feeling of safety. We know that there's a lot of stuff happening in the world right now, and violence that's happening at different facilities. And Kendrick, I would love for you to talk a little bit about how AMN really supports our clinicians when, hopefully, knock on wood, they're never in a situation that is life-threatening or there's a high element of violence. But in those cases where there are, what does AMN do that's a differentiator?
I'd say the biggest thing is kind of a joint effort that we have with our crisis team that's available for any situations like this. And, definitely calls for the recruiter to notify that crisis team, get clinical involved, and get some professionals involved to make sure that we're supporting the clinician through the situation, but also so that we're taking preventative measures, for our other travelers that could potentially run into the same issue on the unit. So I would definitely say if you ever run into situations like this, first goal is to hit that recruiter up, make sure you let them know what's going on so that we can get professionals involved and make sure you're supported.
Yeah. And usually we've heard about it kind of as things are happening or as there's updates that are happening. As Kendrick mentioned, we do have a crisis team that jumps into action to make sure that we're supporting all of you that might be impacted or could be there. So we'll follow, of course, the local law enforcement guidance, but we're also very much involved with just making sure that you are safe. So I think that idea of safety or that kind of baseline that you have for who's the safety net that you have of who's going to help me in these places where sometimes I'm very far away from home. We have all of these things in place at a variety of different I keep saying place, but variety of different places throughout the process. And it really does start as kind of simple as it sounds, Meagan, right? With making sure that the patient safety comes first, but that you're also taken care of. So hopefully you're hearing that you are the center of where our concern and our focus are. We want to make sure that you are in a place that you feel comfortable and can really be successful. So we've talked a little bit about how you can update information. Meagan, before I transition us a little bit, I want to come back to something that you said of being the first in line or being the first one that is submitted. Hospitals are also looking at staffing a little bit differently, and they're using a lot of technology to support their candidate search. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of these hospitals are using, like you said, Saundra, technology to really open up the candidate pool as much as possible to make sure that they do find that right fit. That's both a cultural fit, a team player fit, but also, skills wise is a good fit. So that being said, with the candidate pool being larger, that comes with more submissions. So it's all about speed, and it really is all about being one of the first to submit to those positions with a full profile so that, you can really get in the door.
Yeah. And they're using, you talked about it already, but they're using that technology to really make sure they're getting the right candidate in place. Connor, I would love to come to you to talk more about how do they become the first person in? And then Kendrick, I think after that, I'd like to hear a little bit from you of this idea that's a little bit different, and Meagan touched on it, but you're not going to be submitted to just one position. You're likely going to be submitted to multiple, and there's reason behind that. But Connor, first tell us, how are we using technology as AMN to make sure they are the first in line?
Yeah, absolutely, Saundra. The first things that we have AMN Passport pre-check, which is one of the options where you can select positions that you are interested, or essentially say a location, pay, all the things that you'd be interested in. And as the position pops up, you'd automatically have a file pulled aside for you with that. And then the other thing that we're seeing too, in order to best represent your profile and, to make sure that you get in for the position you want, it's profile readiness, right? It's what we discussed earlier as far as having all of these things on file and having your recruiter as far as know what connection with your recruiter so they know what you're looking for and are able to submit you and have everything on file as soon as that position pops up that you're interested in.
Yeah, because we want it to be instantaneous, right? The position that you're interested that matches the things that Connor talked about, the location, the pay component, if that's important to you, if it's insert whatever that bucket list item is for you, that you're submitted first. Kendrick, what I think has been different for us as recruiters and also for our clinicians is to get used to this idea that it's not just going to be that one perfect place, right? We really are needing to expand a little bit more. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, so with the competitiveness, just to piggyback off what Connor was saying is you can set these job preferences and you can set preferences on the app to kind of put aside any jobs that are ideal for you based on what you want for your ideal travel contract. And most of the time, there are going to be multiple jobs that meet those preferences, right? Maybe they don't necessarily select everything that you want for your ideal assignment, but they knock off 3 out of 4 of what you're looking for, being pay, location, and the type of unit. And, that just maximizes our opportunities to be able to get you booked and get as many offers as we can for you. Typically you can choose from the offers that you're able to obtain, but it's always great practice to, have a first, second, third option, and also be willing to accept the offer if you do get that third option offer. And that way you ensure that you have a contract confirmed. So.
Yeah, definitely. And Kendrick, tell me a little bit more about this piece as well, because we know that our clinicians like to feel comfortable. We just talked about it with Meagan. They like to feel comfortable about the environment that they're stepping into. And that can sometimes be where this hard stop comes in before actually getting our file submitted. But it's almost like we have to change our mindset to say, let's submit. If we're even an iota interested, let's just get submitted. And then those questions that we have, like what's the scrub color? What does the on-call look like? Some of those things that are more specific, we can't really even ask until we've been put through the kind of that initial step. So that is different, but tell me a little bit more about how you're helping your clinicians with that.
Yeah, so definitely, like a lot of recruiters have probably been experiencing, you get to that point where you submit and then those questions come through and now that's stopping you from potentially getting the offer for that job. So just getting your file in, making sure that you're at least considered for the position. And then like Saundra said, still ask those questions, still confirm all the information that you need to know prior to actually accepting the contract. But, still give your recruiter that willingness to be able to submit your file. That's what we call it, the willingness to submit. And that just, it makes it so that your recruiter can get more offers for you. There's no point in, being interested in a job or having some inquiries about a specific opening and then, it filling before we can even get answers to your questions, so just let that file get through, potentially have the offer or be working on the offer, and then get your questions answered at the same time.
It's kind of like if we're imagining it, right? It's like you got to get your foot inside the house before you can pick out the furniture, right? You got to get in there first before we can say, okay, my full-size big couch that I really want does fit or doesn't fit. So thinking about it in a little bit of a different way, just looking at the pictures and stuff we know isn't going to answer everything, but it'll at least give you enough to say, yes, let's at least get to this next piece. Meagan, I would love to hear a little bit more from you. What we're seeing in the industry as well is, and we kind of got away from it, is we are still seeing nurse managers have conversation with nurses, and that being a big part of the interview process, right? And a lot of those questions can get answered there.
Yeah, we definitely are seeing that more. It kind of goes back to them wanting to make sure that it's a good experience all around and making sure that that individual that they're bringing on is going to be the right fit for the position. So, having that awesome relationship with your recruiter where you can let them know your availability for an interview should you get, selected and get in the door is really important. It helps a ton. These managers are busy just as everyone else is. So if you're able to provide some times up front that you'll have your phone in your hand and can take that call, that's always really helpful because they might just move on and keep calling until they get someone. So that's always really helpful. But yeah, they want to call you, they want to talk to you, they want to make sure that it's going to be a success and that you're going to ultimately want to stay and have a good experience too.
Yeah, and such a good point. Something that you brought up that Connor, I'd love to hear your take on is just this kind of openness with your recruiter, and Kendrick hit on it a little bit, but the openness with your recruiter to really, I'm going to say this word, but like sell your profile to the nurse manager, the places that they're being submitted to, but to really highlight how amazing they are. But a lot of that comes from openness and dialogue with you as their recruiter. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the connection between you and your recruiter sells everything. I mean, we, as we talked about, look at when facilities are looking at the profile and managers are looking at the profile, the first page is just exactly what stands out, right? What stands out for this clinician? What experience do they have? If it's a specific specialty, If it's ER, do you have trauma experience? Do you have neuro experience? If you're looking at ICU, just specific experience to your specialty, how much experience you have in that field, and things to really make you stand out. That relationship with your recruiter to really advocate for you is critical.
Definitely. And I think, Kendrick, if you can add on that as well. So it's adding in all of those different pieces, but then if there, maybe if there is a location specifically, right? There's one hospital that we really want to work at. We've updated all of the DAISY awards and the experience that you have, but also being open about your willingness to maybe work at a different unit at that hospital. Tell me a little bit more about how you help your clinicians kind of think through that too.
Yeah, especially if you've had some experience within a specialty, stepping down or stepping up, really that experience piece is key, to making sure that we're putting you, again, like we've been talking about, on a unit where you're going to feel safe and that you're going to enjoy the assignment. But just having that willingness, most of the time, well, it depends on the specialty, but most of the time the rates are comparable, right? And if your goal is to, say, for instance, get started by mid-March and you can't, you don't want to go weeks without being on shift, without collecting a check, give us that information, make sure that, and make sure that you express that urgency with us, and we will find a way to get you an offer on, maybe if you're ICU, maybe on a tele unit, if you're open to that, and vice versa. So definitely just communicate that to your recruiters and let them know that's super valuable information that helps us get you an offer a lot faster.
Totally. And Meagan, I know you're going to add on here because I know you have feelings. Go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just to add to that, this is where the recruiter and the account manager can really partner together. So when they have they'll reach out to me. I have a nurse that really wants to go to this location. These are their must-haves, but they're willing to work on these different types of units. Then I can bring that to the facility when I submit them over, and I say, hey, this is their first choice. They'd love to be here, but if you have somebody that's already taken an offer there, or if you think that they might be a better fit in this one, great, let's do it. And it helps them know that you're flexible, and they'll work with us to help get you a spot there. So exactly like Kendrick was saying, just keep that line of communication open with where you're willing to float, where you're willing to work, and we'll make sure we do our best to find you something.
Absolutely. And I think, to both of your points, something that you're talking about is flexibility and just willingness to be a little bit more maybe open than you would historically if it's something that you really want or someplace you really want to go. I think with that, it's the open lines of communication, but Kendrick, it's also our ability to make sure, or Connor, feel free to jump in here, to make sure that we really have a deep understanding of the why our clinician is traveling and why that's so important. Connor, maybe you can add there, and then Kendrick, if you have anything to tag on.
Yeah, I mean, that's my first question with every clinician that we work with, right? Why are you traveling? What is it that you want out of the contract? I mean, and I think specifically back to 2 months ago, I had a clinician in the same, literally the exact boat that we were describing here, right? Is they wanted a specific facility or specific area, and it's just a tough hospital to be able to get contracts with or get placements with there. And the clinician said, whatever it takes, I'm willing to work on different shifts. I'm willing to work different specialties that I qualify for. And, I partnered with the account manager there, and we were able to get her placed there. And it was through submitting her to, 5 different specialties. And eventually one of them worked out, and it's exactly what she wanted.
Yeah. No, I think that's so, it's important because we can do that. And that's really where we step in as your career counselor. You just heard from Connor and Kendrick, multiple years of experience doing this. So while it might be your first travel assignment, or maybe even 3rd or 4th or 5th travel assignment, we have thousands of clinicians that we've put on assignment as a company over the years. So Kendrick, what would you add to kind of that piece?
Yeah, actually, it makes me think of one of my travelers that's at a Kaiser facility, at a facility in California, and she's an ICU RN, but we booked her on tele, and she's been working tele for the last 2 or 3 contracts. So it just goes to show, she prefers to get back over to ICU, and I know that may be something that a lot of travelers think about when they, are working a contract on a lower acuity, higher acuity specialty. But we can always get you back over to whatever your active or main specialty is, as long as you have that year's worth of experience in the last 3 years, and 1 or 2 contracts is not going to get in the way of that. So it's something to keep in mind. And especially if you're having difficulty finding a contract in your active specialty, it might be a good idea.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's again, it's a differentiator, right? That's where we're here to really help be thoughtful with you, to think maybe a little bit differently. And Meagan just highlighted it. Also communicate with our account managers, because a lot of times they have maybe line of sight to positions that haven't even opened yet, that we could say, you know what, nurse manager, in this ICU, I know you don't have a spot open, but I've got a clinician for you. So the more that we have information on the recruitment side, the more our account managers can really help us with thinking about things differently, or maybe being a little bit more strategic in different ways. We're almost at our half hour, which is crazy. We've gotten so much in. I think maybe one of the other things that I want to talk about is just along this line of transparency and openness with your recruiter. I think, and Connor and Kendrick, I'll come to you, but asking your recruiter questions. Connor, you can add in here, but your recruiter has a wealth of knowledge, and we have a lot of internal team members that help us with things. Recently, right? Like with changes in government and questions that might be coming up about stipends or taxes or insert whatever thing it is. But that's really where your recruiter is that advocate for you and can help you understand. Even if we don't have every single detail of information, we can at least find it or point you in the right direction. Kendrick, you're shaking your head, so I'll come to you after. Connor, what would you add there?
Yeah,
go ahead. I'd just say we have company-wide rollouts as far as process and procedure, and we don't. If we have a change that's happening, we're aware of it, and we can ask us directly. Don't just make an assumption from something that you've read. Ask us if anything is changing from what procedure has been before, or if you're a new traveler, ask any questions that you have, because there's everything we're pretty much able to answer there. Would refer for tax stuff to a tax expert, but outside of that, we can answer all of your questions.
Yeah, that's perfect, Connor. Kendrick, what would you add?
Yeah, just to add on to that, be open, ask us. If we don't know the answer to it, we'll find it. I've definitely had a lot of situations where I didn't know the answer to a question from one of my travelers, but I guarantee you I went and found that information. And thankfully, we work for an amazing company that is all about support, from departments, amongst departments. So we'll be here to answer any questions you have. Just ask us.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I do think that that's a really great place for us to wrap, but maybe before we do, I'll just ask each of you kind of around the horn here. What's one piece of travel advice that you would have for clinicians, whether they're brand new or tenured? What's your one piece of advice? Meagan, I'll start with you.
I would say, to kind of go along with our theme, is be open. Be open to new experiences, new adventures. It might not be exactly what you had in mind, but it might turn out to be even better. So that's what I would say.
Perfect. Thank you, Meagan. Connor, what about you?
Yeah, to Meagan's point, 5 to 7 locations, minimum there. I would also say profile readiness, right? If you're interested and ready to go, have everything submitted on file. So when that position comes up, we can submit you and you don't miss out on the right position, right? All it takes is just having your file completely updated.
Yeah. And even before you're ready to go, if you're just even thinking that traveling is something you want to do, download the AMN Passport app, get all of your items updated via profile readiness, so that when the moment does come, we can get you submitted right away to that job that you want. Kendrick, wrap us up. What's your one piece of travel advice? I don't know if I lost Kendrick. Hopefully you can see me. Kendrick, maybe we'll come back to you. Now his computer's getting a little sick. We lost Kendrick. This is a good place for us to stop. But thank you, Rachel, again for bringing us back. We always love talking to the Gypsy community. We're here for anything that you need or any questions that you have. Definitely call your recruiter and download our AMN Passport app.
Definitely. Thank you all for your great knowledge. Your travelers are in such great hands. Everyone be back check on our social page and watch this again or watch it for the first time. And we will see you again another time. Thank you.